The International Monetary Fund released a report November 2022, not too long ago, outlining a multi-currency exchange and contracting platform. And as we come down here, we see it's a whole working paper, the IMF working paper, and it's a multi-currency exchange and contracting platform, and it describes the research in progress by the authors and are published to elicit comments and encourage debates. And as we go down here, we can see the abstract. Cross-border payments can be slow, expensive, and risky. They are intermediated by counterparties in different jurisdictions, which rely on costly trusted relationships to offset the lack of a common settlement asset, as well as common rules and governance. In this paper, we present a vision for a multilateral platform that can improve cross-border payments, as well as related foreign exchange transactions, risk sharing, and more generally, financial contracting. The approach is to leverage technological innovations for public policy objectives. A common ledger, smart contracts, and encryption offer significant gains to market efficiency, completeness, and access, as well as to transparency, transaction, and compliance costs, and safety. The paper is a first step aiming to simulate further work in this space. Keywords: cross-border payments, multilateral platforms, digital money, CBDC, programmability, encryption. As we go down here, we can see the contents, and they're calling it XC. So cross-border payments, it seems like, or exchange, whatever they're trying to do. So XC architecture and design, it walks through it all. You go down here, it talks about compliance, data, and privacy, and then markets and contracts for FX, currency exchange, market, liquidity, and hedging contracts, market design, a centralized multi-currency market, and then forward and risk sharing contracts and markets. And it talks about how they would break it down. So as I was rolling down here, I was like, it's that same old talk coming from out of the mouths of Ripple, out of the mouths of the BIS, out of the mouths of the Federal Reserve, out of the mouths of every central bank and high-level institution in the world. So cross-border payments are oftentimes slow, expensive, and risky as they are exposed to fundamental obstacles of trade. Domestically, there are infrastructures and governance. So cross-border payments are oftentimes slow, expensive, and risky as they are exposed to fundamental obstacles to trade. Domestically, there are infrastructures and governance structures that allow the private sector to better provide payment and financial services. At the international level, however, lack of coordination creates an insufficient provision of these public goods and results in inefficient arrangements for cross-border transactions. These issues are compounded by disruption in cross-border payments emerging with new technologies that may allow for transactions that circumvent borders and regulations, and by fears of fragmentation that have risen given ongoing geopolitical conflicts. The need for a better cross-border payments have been long recognized by the international community. In October 2020, G20 finance ministers and the central bank governors endorsed a roadmap for enhancing cross-border payments. This comprises 19 building blocks that aim to achieve faster, cheaper, more transparent, and more inclusive cross-border payment services. These should be safe and secure and can facilitate economic growth, international trade, global development, and financial inclusion. The objectives of this paper are twofold: to encourage further discussion on how multilateral platforms could enhance cross-border payments, and to eventually simulate the provision of key international public goods and infrastructures. Wow, huge. Then if you go down in the context here and like the footnotes, they go a little bit deeper. So they say, in this paper, we refer to contracts from different related perspectives. Actually, let's stick to the first one. This paper builds upon building block 17 on new multilateral platforms and arrangements in cross-border payments, and that was by the CPMI, IMF, and WB, and building block 19 on options for access to and interoperability of CBDCs for cross-border payments. That was another 2022 research report. And you can see that what they're saying here is, with these objectives in mind, we present in this paper a specific vision for multilateral exchange and contracting platform, so XC platform. The design of the platform improves cross-border transactions in two dimensions. All right, let's dive into it. So first, it has a design that centralizes payments and settlements and integrates functionality needed for cross-border transactions, namely to streamline compliance, to reduce costs of foreign exchange conversion, and to better manage financial risks. Second, it leverages new technologies to better organize payments and associated financial markets. These new technologies are common ledgers with unique states, programmability that allows for automated financial contracts, and encryption which ensures privacy can alleviate the underlying obstacles to trade. These tools allow the design of a multilateral exchange and contracting system where participants can truthfully share information with smart contracts but retain privacy relative to other parties. Exchange systems must deal with fundamental problems which create the need for a contractual arrangement to deal with risks, credit, and insurance. At the level of individual agents, payment flows are asynchronous. Inflows and outflows over intervals of time rarely match and flows may not balance. Thus, agents accumulate liquidity buffers, borrow to ensure they have enough liquidity to meet their obligations, or enter insurance schemes to withstand net flows. Agents that wish to share their financial position to facilitate these may find that their messages may not be trusted, or that doing so may put them at a disadvantage by revealing private information. And as we scroll down here, we see this. These problems in payments and financial markets exist within jurisdictions but have been alleviated by public goods. Examples include payments and financial market infrastructures and central bank money. Regulations delineates rules and responsibilities to create trust in financial intermediaries so these intermediaries can play a key role in absorbing the counterparty risk and offer resolution. This includes a framework for due diligence on their clients and complying with customer standards. Payment system infrastructures like RTGS, which is real-time gross settlement, allow aggregating and clearing of requests for payments. The central bank offers a common settlement asset, central bank reserves, that allows participating institutions to extinguish their obligations with finality. Further, central banks can backstop liquidity shortfalls with policy actions. Financial markets support the payments infrastructure by allowing futures and derivatives contracts to manage risks. These are regulated and have their own respective infrastructures for contracts, execution, and settlement. This landscape, right? It's continuously updated by private and public sector innovation. Fast retail payment systems are emerging from private bank clearing associations. Fast retail payments are emerging from private bank clearing associations and from central banks. Fintech serving households and small businesses start from digital payment functions but build credit and insurance products on top with synergies in the data and financial products. So that's the retail CBDC. At the wholesale level, large intermediaries like JP Morgan have been developing blockchain-based solutions for instantaneous digital transfers of treasury and collateral, US money market funds. So many things in this that are key because I'm going to show you some connections with JP Morgan, with Stellar, with Chain, and then also with the wholesale. I mean, we remember the central bank digital currency policymaker toolkit. You had JPM coin and XRP, nothing more, nothing less. The responsibility for tracking transfers and changes in ownership in this landscape rests on multiple brokers and intermediaries that modify their clients' accounts to reflect those transactions. As infrastructures and legacy systems were created to facilitate intermediation, the information from transactions is recorded in several ledgers for each intermediary and each of the clients that enter a transaction. These ledgers do not guarantee a unique common underlying state. So for cross-border payments, many of these infrastructures are insufficient or they just don't exist. Establishing trust and coping with market failures is more difficult and expensive when transactions must be carried out across borders. At the international level, the lack of common governance across borders makes these public goods scarce or non-existent and leads to high risk, high cost, and high concentration. Boom, here we go. First, internationally, there is no common and widely available settlement asset. Domestically, the combination of regulation and supervision, access to a safe settlement asset, and potential central bank backstops make financial institutions' liability highly liquid, in most circumstances acceptable for settlement. In contrast, the lack of common settlement assets in cross-border payments results in networks of bilateral claims or closed-loop systems with intra-firm claims. Internationally, banks must rely on foreign banks to access foreign central bank money through nostro, vostro accounts, or must set up branches and be regulated in the countries for which they want to have access to central bank reserves. Second, across borders, there are different currencies and thus agents need to make foreign exchange transactions. While in most domestic transactions, there's a single currency involved, cross-border transactions, they require an agent in the payment chain, a bridge currency, to make the conversion across currencies. In many cases, this implies risks and high costs. These costs have been documented as one of the main drivers of cross-border transaction costs. The importance of FX costs is especially true for countries that have liquid FX markets where spreads charged by intermediaries are typically high. These intermediaries need to hold inventory of multiple currencies, which exposes them to foreign exchange risk. The more illiquid the market is, the more expensive it is to manage this risk. Contracts and markets for forward swaps and FX derivatives may be non-existent. So high costs and economies of scale and self-insurance reinforces large players, market power, and cross-border payments. Only large financial institutions can in-house FX conversion, internally buffering risks thanks to the scale given by their large balance sheets. And some lack of market depth in foreign exchange derivative markets can hamper spot market liquidity and increase cross-border transaction costs. As we go down, specialization in overcoming these three frictions gives rise to networks of bilateral correspondent banking relationships. International banking, closed-loop solutions, and cross-border payments, WISE, MoneyGram, which have high fixed costs and economies of scale. This results in concentrated market structures and large intermediaries that play a central role in cross-border payments. Now let's keep going. This is where it gets juicy. So there have been many public and private sector innovations and initiatives to improve cross-border payments. Standardizing messaging allowed correspondent banking to be faster and safer. Netting and settlement has been improved for some currencies. Regional payment platforms have been developed, and experimentation in linking domestic payment systems is also ongoing. Payment providers have also been developing new services. Solutions that leverage stable coins for fast and inexpensive cross-border payments have also grown recently. And then if we go to number 16 here, right? Just like it's saying, number 16, for example, Stellar and Ripple. So solutions that leverage stablecoins for fast and inexpensive cross-border payments have grown recently. Stellar and Ripple. There are related ongoing projects and experimentation that also aim to develop solutions for cross-border payments using DLT, distributed ledger technologies. Some of these projects are public and led by a consortium of central banks, and some are done in collaboration with the BIS innovation hubs. The private sector has also been active and launched initiatives to make cross-border payments more efficient. What projects share is that they use a DLT with tokens representing different national monies and focus on how to move value from one country to another. Banque de France explicitly presents a solution to foreign exchange markets using automated market making. We're going to do a deep dive on that. We build on these initiatives and go further. So they're digging deep. I like it. Getting their hands dirty. They ain't wearing a white glove. They're wearing those rough gloves. They're getting their hands dirty. They're going deep, and they're going in the trenches to go further on these initiatives and seeing what they may need to design. So our proposal, they say, for the XC platform has a centralized multi-currency FX trading environment on the platform. We also allow for the introduction of contracts and policies to manage FX risks. Our focus with XC naturally goes beyond purely payments, as we include in other functions that are needed for competitive and efficient cross-border payment outcomes. Technological improvements in the design of intermediation systems can allow economies to be better connected. The idea is to create markets that are currently missing established infrastructures to fill in the gaps in financial access and reduce inefficiencies in cross-border payments. To do so, we are explicit about economic frictions, and we lay out the technological requirements for the solutions we propose. This gives blueprints for the design of the platform, the infrastructures, and its functions. And then you can see Ripple and Stellar plastered all over this. Literally plastered all over this. Swift as an innovation that created a common standard for messaging payment requests. We know that. CLS, a centralized system for netting and reducing of FX settlement risk, operating in only 18 currencies. Then you have this, cross-border regional systems as, for example, PAPS. Then you go down, you see Ripple, you see Stellar. Then you go down more, you see Ripple again, Santander with Ripple, And then we have Citi's regulated liability network. That's what's rumored for the Project Cedar platform, the pilot that's going on with Federal Reserve and some big US banks. It's supposed to be wrapping up mid-February or mid-March, I believe it was. But let's go down, because a first key aspect of this design is that organizing cross-border transactions. First key aspect of the design is that organizing cross-border transactions in a multi-platform like XC could improve efficiency by reducing transaction chains, settlement risks, and costs of foreign exchange transactions. This aspect of the design hinges on an architecture that would provide key public goods, a common infrastructure with rules and governance that would shorten transaction chains and would give legal certainty to participating agents. Having common settlement assets to reduce settlement risk and a trading environment to trade these different settlement assets, so it's more than one in the platform. Second key aspect of the design is combining the separate features of new technologies that XC would require to address market failures and inadequate contracts. These features and new technologies are one common ledger, programmability, cryptography. We use the common ledger to build markets and keep track of ownership of transactions offered by participants. The ledger is built to interact with computer code. Then if we go down here, it says, we anchor the design on contract theory and market design, how agents should interact to best overcome market failures. And then it talks about how falling short of this engenders limited participation. In the current cross-border payments landscape, large institutions act as dealers and need to cover the cost of holding currency inventories. There are further markups to cover FX and counterparty risks. The market power from concentration also results in even higher markups. Our design aims to increase competition, lower spreads, reduce risk by providing infrastructure, contracts, and markets for just-in-time liquidity transfers. So, to me, just-in-time means on-demand liquidity transfers for previous contract commitments, a centralized multi-currency market, and instruments and markets for better hedging of risks. This paper is structured to start with bare bones designs of XC and then add features that can improve cross-border transactions. In section 2, we present the architecture of the platform and we explain the key technological requirements that it should meet. Section 3, we discuss how the technology can complement governance arrangements and allow for more efficient compliance with customers' due diligence and capital management measures. In Section 4, we show how to organize spot and derivative FX markets to improve market liquidity and manage risks. Then in 5, we argue that the same tools can be applied for central bank backstops and operations on the platform. Right there. Then if we go down, it goes into the design. It talks about having a common financial infrastructure for exchange and for entering into and executing financial contracts. Having deep currency exchange markets or pools is key for an efficient cross-border payments platform. XC provides an environment for digital monies issued by central banks for programmable final settlement in participant countries' currencies. This shortens payment chains, reduces balance sheet interconnections, and makes transactions faster, cheaper, and safer than bilateral private claims. XC allows for greater competition to cross-border payment intermediation by opening access to bank and non-bank financial entities. Agents from participating countries would be able to transact using all available CEs in the platform. The aim is to increase competition and increase liquidity in currency pairs. XC has technological features that include a single ledger where participants' accounts and contracts are recorded. The ability for programmability into encrypt accounts is there too. Settlement risk. Settlement risk is eliminated by immediate guaranteed settlement at a point in time or guaranteeing contract settlement at future designated dates and states. Messaging, settlement, and committing contracts become linked. Thus, cross-border transactions using XC are final and irrevocable. So the first key technological feature is the unique state of the common ledger. Then the next is the programmability of it, and then the use of cryptography. So settlement risk is eliminated by immediate guaranteed settlement at a point in time or guaranteed contracted. Oh, I think that was the same kind of info. But applications. So it dives into applications. And I think at this point, we can go on to the next thing because I think we're getting the picture here. Believe we're getting the picture. So now let's dive into this, right? And this is something I'm going to revisit. It's 57 pages, but there's a whole lot of heat in it. But let's go to it because here We have central bank liquidity bridges for cross-border payments. This was last year by the BIS. So we're seeing the liquidity bridges, cross-border payments. The G20 cross-border payments program has identified funding costs as contributing to the high cost of cross-border payments. This partly reflects the costs of banks' fragmented holdings of liquidity and collateral in different currencies across multiple jurisdictions. Central bank liquidity bridges can help reduce these costs by allowing payment system participants to post collateral at a foreign central bank to be able to draw on intraday liquidity from their home central bank. Central bank liquidity bridges entail setup and running costs and the risks needed to be managed through adequate risk and control measures. By adopting a parsimonious design and leveraging existing systems and arrangements, the associated costs and complexities can be reduced. Then we go down here. Let's go down. Costs are globally fragmented in liquidity and collateral. International banks and other payment service providers incur the cost of holding liquidity and collateral in different currencies across multiple jurisdictions to facilitate intraday payments and large value payment systems. Intraday liquidity needs to meet these payment obligations may be large and highly variable due to mismatches in the timing of payment inflows and outflows through the business day. So central bank liquidity bridges as a potentially useful liquidity management tool. Central bank liquidity bridges can help international banks to more efficiently manage their global liquidity requirements. Then if we go down still, it says CBLB participants may use this liquidity to meet their intraday payment obligations in both normal and stress liquidity conditions, and you can see how that would pan out. Then we keep going down here and we can see that about setting it up and operating it, what that will be like. Then we go here, central banks may wish to consider situational factors, but design options. So they can either be bilateral or multilateral. In terms of liquidity and collateral flows, a CBLB could be either one way or reciprocal. The role of the facilitating central bank can tend towards passive or active, and eligible collaterals may include cash or securities, although cash appears to be the simplest type of collateral for operational reasons. Then if we keep going, we see well-designed CBLBs could be an effective way of reducing the funding costs incurred by international active PSPs. It could help improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the global liquidity pool of banking groups operating in several currencies, right? Just like that last document was laying out, you needed the deep pools of liquidity for this all to work. And they said CBLBs could help improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the global liquidity pool of banking groups operating in several currencies, reducing the need for internationally active PSPs to hold liquidity buffers in multiple currencies. The reduced funding costs and settlement and credit risk resulting from CBLBs could lower the cost cross-border payment services both directly and also indirectly through greater competition by lowering the barriers to entry for banking groups providing cross-border payment services in multiple jurisdictions. Now if we go down, a CBLB may face setup and running costs. The case for establishing one is likely to depend on the circumstances of individual jurisdictions. Then it talks about excess liquidity does not prevail everywhere, and it may not last forever. The central banks of jurisdictions that could benefit from CBLBs may therefore find it worthwhile to consider their advantages regardless of current liquidity conditions. Now let's fast forward to this. No, Ripple isn't the next Bitcoin. The company's crypto has also seen an incredible run-up in value, but investors may have gotten the wrong idea. It's definitely not Bitcoin, that's for sure. And in this, they say the same thing. They say it could be a very expensive lesson, and XRP is a different beast than Bitcoin. And to begin with, Bitcoin relies on a network of miners running code, and we know how XRP works. But right here, XRP was never meant to be another Bitcoin. No, for sure it wasn't. Ripple's big bet is that XRP will become a bridge currency, liquidity bridge, right? Deep liquid pools, right? Like they're going swimming, that many financial institutions use to settle cross-border payments faster and more cheaply than they do now using global payments networks, which can be slow and involve multiple middlemen. First off, I didn't even say who wrote this article. MIT Technology Review. It's not no fake website. This is just straight from the horse's mouth. I'll give the date, January 11, 2018, but everything applies. It's 5 years later, but it's 5 years of the same ish. And we're now seeing stuff really be implemented and pilots happening. And I believe 2023 is a year where this stuff just really levels up and goes full force and accelerates. So Bitcoin could be used to do this too, but Ripple can settle 1,000 transactions per second compared with Bitcoin 7, and its transaction fees are much lower. The idea is that this will in turn will make the currency more valuable. The company says that more than 100 financial institutions are using it, and 61 banks in Japan, 2 in South Korea formed a coalition to launch a new Ripple pilot. Here's the catch though. Ripple's blockchain-based payment network doesn't need a bridge currency to work, and nearly everyone using the network has so far chosen to exchange digital IOUs instead. They settle the transactions later using fiat currency. So then there was an update. As many have pointed out in the comments, MoneyGram, a leading money transfer company today, announced that it would test XRP. The announcement does not guarantee adoption, however. Last week, Brad Garlinghouse tweeted that banks and payment providers are indeed planning to use XRP in a serious way. And that's what's happening. 5 years later today, we saw that more than half of the volume running through RippleNet, XRP, is being used for those. He said it out in a video the other day. I put it in my video from the other day as well too, if you want to go watch it. Now to wrap it all up, we got David Schwartz right here. Let's hear it.
So the fact that the XRP ledger fees are lower is going to mean more of that money that would go to arbitrage. So the fact that the XRP ledger fees are lower is going to mean more of that money that would go to arbitrageurs stays with the people who are staking the pool, and that's what you want. Because if people don't stake the pool, there's no liquidity. You want the stakers to reap the rewards of their staking so that there will be these deep pools of liquidity.
So deep pools of liquidity, right? He's talking about arbitrage, because if I can, find on a different exchange or a currency that's not very liquid, like a small island nation or something like that, you can really pull some serious arbitrage. So what they want to do is have a deep liquid pool of these common settlement assets where these international bankers can draw liquidity from. And it's so deep, those liquidity pools, that it doesn't even leave a dent. So that's what we're seeing, the constant verbiage of multi-currency, cross-border platforms, multilateral platforms. We're seeing common public goods, digital public goods and architecture. We're seeing cross-border payments, settlement assets. Like, we're seeing all the buzzwords. We're seeing liquidity pools. Then we're seeing in the BIS thing, deep liquidity bridges for cross-border payments and collateral liquidity management tool. Then when you come to here, you're seeing this say that XRP, what its big bet is a bridge currency that financial institutions will use to settle cross-border payments faster, more cheaply than they do now with the current global payment network. Then you had David Schwartz putting the cherry on top, baby. So if that doesn't explain it all, I don't know what does. But I've been sold from the jump. Just coming across their website back years ago, like over 5-6 years ago at this point, it was just love at first sight, let's say. My first 2 coins I bought when I first got on coinmarketcap.com after scanning the first 100 coins was XRP and XLM, baby. So that's going to be it. We know what our common settlement assets are going to be. So we're just going to sit our asses back and wait for it to happen. And we're going to keep providing this news, keep providing these deep dives, this research, these market updates, keeping you on top of the market. And we're going to really level up this year. Everybody watching right now, I promise you that. And I'm excited, and I can't wait to celebrate with y'all after this is all said and done. So I will see you guys in the Discord if not already in it. Click the link in the bio, come join it. Leave a like, leave a comment, share this to everybody, get this stuff out there, because I believe we're leading up to the end of the life-changing gains. Once this market really starts kicking up, I think it's going to be fast. And then every time it goes up a double, it's just the returns just go less and less and less. And then if you have your friends, family, girlfriend, boyfriend, well, whoever it may be, your dog, your cat, buying the top of the crypto market, they're going to be, it's not going to be good, because then they're going to ride that next bear market back down. They're going to be salty. They're going to see everybody else who had made money. They're going to think it's a scam. And then ultimately they bought the top of the biggest bull market to come in crypto, and then they sold the bottom. And then at that point, there's really no life-changing, crazy gains at that point. So, or there will be, but it's going to be very, very tough. Right now, you could throw I mean, back in like 2013, 2015, you could throw literally a fish in a bucket and probably come out with 1,000x or 10,000x. Or 2021, you have to kind of handpick. You know, I think 2023, we hold the ones that are going to do it, but who knows, 2025, 2026, who knows how the market will be and what coins will be involved by that point. So interesting times ahead. And it's just great to be in this community with you, all you watching this right now, to do it together. So I'll see you guys in the next video, and have a happy Friday.